Hey, good morning, everybody. Lots to go over today, including the error that has been flooding my inbox for the past week. So let's jump into it. So I'll start with the big elephant in the room, the 403 errors that everybody's been getting without exception. This isn't a limited occurrence thing. I did a little data collection from some guys thinking maybe it was narrowed down to a region or an ISP, but it isn't. Even I get it every time I run the program. So it's nothing you guys are doing wrong on your end. It's not even anything wrong with the program or our website. It has to do with our CDN, our content delivery network, and pretty much the Barney style explanation of that is we have our web server, which hosts our website and all that stuff. But we get so much traffic to it that having one server or one geolocation isn't enough to actually satisfy like all the requests that we get from around the world. Especially not while keeping it somewhat snappy as possible, especially from around the world. So what we use is a CDN, specifically Cloudflare, and what this is it kind of like very temporarily caches your website to dozens of servers all over the world. Google does the same thing. That's how their network is so big and how their search engine's so snappy, even though that billions of people are hitting it. But yeah, this caching duplicates it all over the world. So that's what CDN is, and basically, they've been undergoing a campaign to upgrade the security and prevent malicious use and like anonymous traffic, stuff like that. Anything that could result in or be the source of distributed denial of service attacks, stuff like that, or just any other security breaches. On top of being a CDN, Cloudflare is also very security oriented, and it helps us to block off a lot of like spam attacks or bot attacks before they even get to the point of reaching our server and us having to rely on internal security measures. So basically, all that's just kind of a little bit of background information. What's been happening is they've been undergoing a campaign to continuously upgrade their security, and they got to the point where they don't allow any more non-certificated or non-SSL requests, non-encrypted communications. They don't allow any of that through their network anymore. And unfortunately, some of the requests we made were in 1.6 are not encrypted. User data is. That's been encrypted, or at least SSL level of encryption from the start. But stuff like pulling in like donation data, not like specific donors, but actually like how far we are away from the goal. Pulling in stuff like news data, pulling in the advertisement rotation, stuff like that. All those things have been done through anonymous requests, or anonymous isn't the way to actually phrase it, but non SSL, just regular HTTP requests, without a strongly typed browser agent, filtering out the requests, stuff like that. Basically, they've been tightening the security, which is a good thing because our website benefits from that. Helps keep out malicious attacks and all that stuff. But 1.6 does not implement any of these changes. 1.7 does, because as some of you might have remembered, boy, sometime mid last year, I explained a lot of the reasoning behind the new website that I'm doing for 1.7, why it's a completely separate thing. Trying to take advantage of newer security technologies, OAuth version 2.0, stuff like that. That was all behind it. So the new version seems to be unaffected, 1.7 that is. 1.6, however, does get a error message, a 403 error saying that the unauthorized access, or the source could not be reached, something to that effect. So people are, or everybody is getting that error. But because this is only an error having to do with the communication of InputMapper and our server, it doesn't actually affect the usage of the program or anything else. Moreover, if you actually do have an account and log in, the error seems to go away, leading me to believe that it is specifically related to either the non-donor data or the ad data or something like that, some sort of communication that takes place when a user isn't logged in. Like I said, it shouldn't affect the usage, or actually it doesn't affect the usage of InputMapper at all. I've put up a blog on the website trying to stress that fact. Regardless, my inbox and website and forum feed and Twitter and every other forum that people can reach out to me has been flooded with people saying that this 403 is stopping the program from working. And I have tried over and over again to stress that it simply is not the case. If they're having issues with the program, they need to separate the 403 error out of it and just tell me other than that what's going on, because not too long ago there was a Windows update that stopped the HID Guardian service again because Windows likes to pick and choose which services it keeps around when it does its updates. And that has been causing issues for people that do use HID Guardian. When that service stops, that service is the whitelister. And it's what InputMapper, the program, reaches out to say, hey, I'm allowed to access this device. Without that service for InputMapper to reach out to, it's not able to access the device. It completely shuts it out to everyone. So that's been the most common cause with people's controllers stopping working. So it has, like, again, nothing to do with the 403 errors. The 403 errors do not affect gameplay, controller input, controller output, controller showing up, not showing up, anything like that. It's completely isolated and having only to do with the program's communication with our website. So now that we got that aside, some other things going on, which have mostly been sparked by this. First of all, to address probably the other elephant in the room, I haven't been around for the past few weeks. I am still dealing with family stuff. My mother's condition is an ongoing thing. It is going to continue to be an ongoing thing. So expect things to be hit or miss for me. That doesn't mean I'm not doing anything. It just means that I am reallocating my time towards things that are actually more productive in the terms of InputMapper, as opposed to what it takes for me to actually sit down and do one of these videos, which at times are cumbersome. My mother's doing okay for the time being, but it's still something that requires me to devote a lot of my time to. So I'd like to ask you guys for a little patience and understanding on that, and thank you for hanging with me through it. Okay, so going on to what I have actually been working on in InputMapper. Some of the main areas of focus have actually been a result of and a spin-off of this 403 error. Not in terms of actually having to change anything, because like I said, 1.7 automatically, everything is done through SSL. It's all above board. It's much more secure than 1.6, so we have no errors or anything like that with 1.7. But it has had me go back and rethink some of the things that I'm doing regarding logging, error reporting, troubleshooting, user tickets, stuff like that. Pretty much all of it is getting pretty much reviewed, and I'm trying to modernize it, automate it as much as possible. So when these periods where I am harder to reach, and it's maybe a week or two before I'm able to respond to tickets happen, that Some of the more common issues are a little more self-solvable, or at least you're able to research it better on your own, and I'm giving you the right tools to do that. That said, the first stage of that is logging. Even though the new InputMapper 1.7 already has substantially better logging, it's about to get boosted into friggin' overdrive here. Pretty much everything that's sending a line to the log, I'm going to start associating error codes and everything with it, as long as logging the actual exception error codes. It's also going to start logging the line numbers, the methods, the class, the file, all these kinds of ways for me to actually localize where this log entry is being originated from. On top of that, it's also going to start dumping stack information for anything that's above a warning level. And what a stack information is, it sends not only what originated this log item, all the location information, but it also sends the information of the classes and calling members that called that method that initialized that log item. So it can be traced all the way back from the start of the application. So I can follow it down and see what steps the actual data took through the application to get to this point where this warning or error message was created. And that's a big help. On top of that, just some other kind of creating generic error codes. So localization isn't that big of an issue, where people are sending me logs that are in Chinese and all that stuff. And especially since 90% of my support requests are handled through my cell phone, being able to translate it on the spot is not an easy task. Of copying, pasting it, and sending it to Google Translate, and then pasting it. It's tedious. So generic error codes are going to start being used, so I can start recognizing common codes such as 403 that we're currently experiencing. And with all this standardization and generalization in the data, as well as more specific originating data, what I can do is I can create a database of known issues, or like hot spots of issues that are occurring all of a sudden at a higher repetition, and I can start creating like telemetry on this data. And not only if I do find a solution when that error pops up in somebody's program. Sorry, I'm an amateur, and apparently I forget to mute my phone. I don't know if that went through, but anyways, when these errors start popping up, I would like it to be able to look at the database and see if this is something that I'm already looking at and aware of, and somehow be able to pass that on to the user along with the error information, such as, like I said, 403 isn't happening in 1.7, but hypothetically, if something like that were to happen, not only would the user get the information about the error as it's happening, it would also have some sort of footnote, which would have, the basic information, like I said in my blog, where it has to do with the communication and it shouldn't affect the program or anything like that, etc., etc. So pretty much that provides like an initial kind of barrier for people to self-identify, self-solve, and understand, any issues that might be arising in InputMapper. Beyond that, some of the other things, as I've mentioned before, that I am working on is the troubleshooter. 1.6 has a troubleshooter on the website, so does 1.7 to some degree. And it kind of helps guide people through some of the most common issues that might not necessarily be error related, such as people having mapping issues or controllers not showing up, or exclusive mode issues, stuff like that. People can go into the troubleshooter and usually narrow it down to a cause and solution pair. So I'm bringing that forward into 1.7 in the new website with some new thinking, easier ways for me to add logic behind that, as far as adding more possible solutions, more possible questions, answers, stuff like that. Just making it a lot more expandable, because right now in its current form, it's a pretty much just a flat logic file with a bunch of if-thens, and it is a pain to update to add other scenarios to. So I'm changing this over to like a database kind of a thing, where it searches through the database, asks you pertinent questions, finds the most relevant possible questions, keeps asking until it narrows it down into an answer, and then presents you with any matched answers. Anyways, that's still ongoing. I think it's been a couple weeks since I've actually worked on that, but I got the database done. I got some of the helper methods done. What's left is to actually do the logic of actually looping through and asking the questions, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's still in progress. The next part of this is the ticketing system. The ticketing system on the 1.6 or the normal website is adequate, barely. And for me, like I said, most of this stuff is done on my phone. It is an absolute nightmare. First of all, none of the it's a Joomla website, and it's using a component or a plugin for those tickets and all that. It's not something that's directly written by me. But first of all, some of the stuff that they have in there, the models and the pop-ups and all that stuff that I would need to access to be able to dig a little bit deeper into a support ticket, are not available on cell phones, because it doesn't render in HTML5 compliant, that. So I'm struggling on a cell phone to make sense of a lot of these tickets, and when I can or can't, I'm not able to reply with standardized canned messages. One of them is directions to giving me log files. I'm not able to reply with that, so I just have to kind of try to type it in as best as I can and reply to people. Other stuff is such as how to access the troubleshooter, just stuff like that. Canned messages, I can't do it. Yeah, it's just a pain in the butt. Anyways, 1.7 rather, the beta website has a new ticketing system, fully mobile friendly. I already have a couple tickets on there. It's working well so far. The issue with that is the actual plugin that I am using for the new WordPress site to handle these tickets. All of the really cool features that I want, like the canned responses, the abandoned tickets, auto either escalation or closing, better attachment viewers, just like all the functions that I would think would be standard with a normal ticket system, actually cost money to add on. Otherwise, the pure vanilla version of this thing is pretty much just like a comment and response kind of a threaded system. So I'm hoping that we can, keep these donations going strong, because I do need to purchase some of those add-ons. They range anywhere from like $25 a piece on up to like $100 or something, depending on what the actual plugin is and the complexity of it. So hopefully we can keep the donations going strong, because that ticket system really does need some of these plugins to be fully utilized to its full potential, as well as be able to integrate it in with the FAQ system and possibly even my my troubleshooter and stuff like that. So that's about it. Other than that, like I said, a lot of the work I've been doing has been focused on the support system. Because I do need to try to automate this to some degree, so you guys aren't completely reliant on my availability to get these issues solved. So that's where a lot of my focus has been going, and will continue to go. That's going to be my pretty much top priority, is getting these systems in place to help you guys through some of these problems. But that's about it, guys. I will try to get another video out. Maybe later this week, maybe next week. I don't know. The scheduling is difficult. So until then, guys, have a good one.